Welcome to Bid Nerds, your daily nerd out on the most interesting car of the day from all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. My name is John Polnik. I'm going to put the little lower third down there so you know it's true. Along with my partner in studio, in the Rami studio, we have Michael Deeb in Las Vegas. What's up, Michael Deeb? Thanks for joining us.
JP? Dude, the container park is lit. Dude, I love it here. This is so cool.
You finally built that badass studio at your place in San Francisco.
I'm ready to abandon it.
Now all of a sudden you're here.
Yeah,
it's like,
I'm never going back. Awesome. I'm never going back. This is my new home. I get all my mail here.
Yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to just pitch a tent out in the alley here. You can survive off chicken wings from Chef.
Yep.
When we do the Dirt or Die Porsche podcast.
It's hard to think I can get any bigger, but I bet Chef could have something to say about it.
Challenge accepted.
Yeah, exactly.
What do we do on this show? We find the most interesting car of the day from all the automotive enthusiast auction sites like Bring a Trailer, Cars and Bids, P-Car Market. We dig through all these, and because let's face it, there's a lot of cars going up for auction every single day. We narrow it down to one, the most interesting car of the day, and today's car, it's going to be controversial. Look, sometimes people always think the most interesting car of the day equals the most expensive or the most exotic or rare or whatever. Yeah. Well, I don't know how expensive or exotic this car is, but it's definitely rare nowadays. What do we got today here?
JP, listen, it's so hard, but it's a Volvo. There's no other way to say it. You and I have become really good friends with the DWA guys, the crew from Santa Cruz, and they put on some really cool rallies. We've attended a couple of them, and there's like a couple of Alphas, a couple of BMWs, but there's a couple of guys that rock Volvos, and it just cracks me up after all these years to think that enthusiasts, a very niche group of them, look back at something like this 1988 Volvo 240 sedan and see a blank canvas from which they can paint their cool car on. It cracks me up. I do know that like in the late 70s, Bertoni made a coupe that I thought was really pretty, very boxy. But this is just a 240 sedan with a manual. Now, I think they did a manual swap. This is a 5-speed. Let me read it to you because I don't know Volvo speak very well. But this car now uses the M47 5-speed. It does maintain its stock B230F 2.3-liter inline 4. But they put exhaust and a few other things, and it probably makes a few more horsepower than stock. There's a company called IPD that did the exhaust system and some suspension. There's another company that I can't quite pronounce. I'll try. Kaplenke, Kaplenke. They did the coilovers, and the Bilstings made the rear shocks. Somebody swapped out the grill and did the egg crate. But it's like all these really cool touches to take this old car, and then like in the photos, they selling the Fantasy with like a surfboard on it. But it wouldn't surprise me to see a car like this roll up to the DWA rally and then go run with all us cool guys in our 911s. I just think this is a really neat car out of Batavia, New York. Now, the other thing that's interesting is this car is on Cars and Bids, and I wonder if such a cool car, such a niche car, wouldn't bring a little more money on BAT with its larger audience. It surprises me that this guy is just going to roll it out, no reserve, on Doug Demuro's site, where maybe Doug Demuro's is a good place to get a lease return car, but is it the place you would run the risk of all that money you invested in your Volvo that you think that you're going to find the Volvo audience on his site? I have been caught out, concentrating too much on the platform and not enough on the car. This is certainly a neat car, but with just 2 days to go, John, this car's sitting at $3,500. So I'd be sweating if I was the seller here. So what do you think? Interesting car? I love that he lowered it, but if you look at that main photo, it looks like he needs wheel spacers to bring those wheels out to complete the look of making this car look like something that might actually be sporty. Neat car, certainly gets my attention. I don't know that it would get my money, but it gets my attention. What do you think?
I don't know if the neat is the right adjective. Weird is the correct adjective, and given that there's no one weirder than Doug Demuro, I think this car is absolutely on the correct platform. I think
there's nobody weirder than Volvo drivers, right?
Right. I mean, I grew up in the Northwest, and being, in the suburbs of Seattle. Look, these were everywhere.
Yeah. History teachers drive these.
Man. I mean, all the granola people loved them. One of my best friends growing up, Gabe Kerr, if you're out there watching the show, shout out to my old buddy Gabe. His parents like had 2 of them, and so I spent a lot of time in Volvo 240s, and then I had a couple other friends whose parents had them and stuff. One buddy of mine, his dad had a 242 GT.
Is that
and then
faster or more motor? What is that?
It was kind of a sportier version.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, if you can call it that. I don't like that this car has been, lowered. I don't like the idea
of trying... slammed. It's been slammed.
Yeah, let's face it. This thing's been slammed. Yeah. These cars are absurdly reliable. They absolutely will go forever and ever and ever. They will take so much abuse. I mean, these are more reliable than Hondas and Toyotas even.
Saying a lot.
You can pour sand in the head of one of these.
And it'll just keep going.
And it'll just keep going and going and going. Now, the automatic versions, the automatic transmissions, those had some issues, the transmission. But the manual ones are just rock solid. And you notice that the inline 4-cylinder is at an angle, so it kind of fits in there. And it's actually at has a very low center of gravity that sits right over the front wheels. These are rear-wheel drive cars. They're from Sweden. They surprisingly, even though they're rear-wheel drive, they do really well in snow for some reason. I guess it's just because the weight's low, but they handle pretty well. But they do feel like they're made from a single piece of steel, like someone just
It's a brick, right?
Yeah,
it's a brick.
They drive a lot like a Mercedes in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Heavy.
Yeah, they're just heavy but stable and do really well on the freeway. This one with big old sway bars and springs and stuff like that. It'd be interesting to see what this one actually drives like.
But here's the thing, John. Let's just say it's a 3,000-pound car. That inline 4 that's normally aspirated, there's no turbo on this thing, makes 114 horsepower, 136. So even if you did like an exhaust and an intake, big deal. What are you going to add? Like, even if you added 20 horsepower, this thing is grossly underpowered. But here, this guy went and spent all this money to lower it and put a 5-speed in it and all this other stuff. And I just think it's.
The 5-speed makes sense.
It came with a 4, right? It came with a 4-speed manual.
No, they were like 4 speeds with an overdrive, so basically 5-speed.
Okay.
I never felt like they were underpowered when I drove them. I mean, by today's standards, of course.
Yeah.
But they weren't sluggish. They weren't like an old Mercedes 300, or 240 or whatever.
Those things are
just dogs. These actually felt like they had a little bit of poop, and because they were manuals, you could wind them up.
Right.
All vehicle. Anytime you have a manual, it's gonna feel more like it has more power. Again, the automatic ones were definitely sluggish. I just think these cars are really classy looking, and I think that slamming like that just makes it look like a dumb piece of junk. And then on top of that, this car is from New York, and it's got rust spots, and looking underneath, it looks like it's okay, but this car ain't gonna bring any money, man. It's not a collector version. It's not super nice.
Well,
it's just kind of a nichey, kind of cool car. This is a car you could get for your kid, though.
Yeah, absolutely. Here's something you bring up all the time that I tend to overlook, because when I want something, I don't care. I'll pay through. I'm a perfect customer because I'll full lay down. But like if you're in California, even if your kid's going to school this semester, right? Like you want to get them a car. If the car is $3,500 or $5,500, you're going to spend the $3,000 to bring it out here, or even $2,000. Like that winds up being a deal breaker. So I like this car almost. I feel like should be on P-Car Market, where they've got this massive audience in their own backyard. But yeah, interesting. Like I said, very interesting.
I do like the beige color. Unfortunately, the dashboard's all broken up. But you're right. I mean, if getting this car to the West Coast winds up being 30% of the value.
Yeah, that doesn't pencil. Then there's no value in it. So really interesting, but maybe a non-starter.
If it were original, I think someone might bite the bullet and say, well, how often do you come by one of these? And I want one. I had one when I was a kid.
That's a really good point.
My friend in high school had one. I mean, it's definitely...
It probably would bring more money.
This is a nostalgic car, or it's a weird car play for
it's
someone. It's
showing 162,000 miles.
Just broken in.
True mileage unknown. But it's no reserve, so it's going to sell no matter what.
Yeah.
So, John, it's sitting on 7 bids with 2 days to go. That makes me really nervous. I wrote $11,000 down, but I don't think it's going to bring that. So I'm just going to change my bid and go $7,000. and send it to you at that number, which is twice where it is right now.
Yeah.
But
what's it at? $3,500.
$3,500.
How much time?
2 days.
2 days. All right, guys. Now's your time to write your bid before we throw some numbers down. See if you're better at this than we are. I'm gonna say, boy, I'm almost like gonna say it's that was it. You know, we see stalls on cars and bids all the time, but
it's no reserve.
But it's no reserve, so I'll say $5,000. I'm going to go under. I don't think it gets much more than that. And it's going to sell. Someone's going to get it. Someone's going to have to drag it home. What do you guys think of that bid? Did you bid higher? Did you bid lower? Let's find out how much this car sells for right after this. Okay, guys, I want to tell you about Vegas Auto Fest. The drivers are coming. This is one of our big sponsors. It's the biggest car show of the year in Las Vegas. It's one of the coolest car shows you can possibly experience anywhere. If you haven't made plans to be part of Vegas Auto Fest on September 17th, then do it now. Go to vegasautofest.com and register your car. You think you're a car enthusiast? Doesn't matter where you live. Plan a trip to Vegas on September 17th and come out and see this show. It's like Monterey Car Week all in a day. Have you ever been to the Quail? Have you ever been to Works Reunion? Have you ever been to Amelia Island? All those car shows are amazing and great. Have you been to Luftkult? Sure, but Vegas Auto Fest is something special. Make a plan for September 17th. We'll see you in Vegas. All right, surf's up, everybody. We are back to Bid Nerd, your daily nerd on the most interesting car of the day from all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. Michael Deeb, right over there, is back in. Actually, it's that way, right? When I point, I get a point. It's the opposite direction when I look at the screen. Michael Deeb over there is back in his studio in San Francisco, where apparently it's cold. It is not here in Las Vegas in the Container Park. Hey, if you're in the downtown Las Vegas area, why don't you come down and visit us in the Container Park? We need some visitors to come down here, man.
Yeah, it's life beautiful this weekend. You guys will be in the studio rolling balls.
Yeah, it's true. Look, you could come and play our little slot machine, and you could sit over there in the background and just watch the show. If you're at Life is Beautiful this weekend, come and hang out with us in the Container Park. Cool. Actually, this show is probably going to air after Life is Beautiful, so if you get this invitation now, sorry, you're too slow. You should have watched the show in the future.
Yeah, life
week.
Was beautiful.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it was. All right, let's get to the car. Everyone's chomping at the bit, wanting to look. This episode's probably going to get 4 views. Nobody cares about this car. I don't know why this was selected as the most interesting car. This is the dumbest car of the day on all the automotive.
I picked this car for you because he put a Volvo on coilovers, and I kept waiting for you to go, oh man, I can fix it with wheel spacers and make it the coolest Volvo ever. And then I also thought that, being a Volvo, this would remind you of your childhood where everybody in the Pacific Northwest drove one of these things. Interesting when you try to make something that it's not, with all the suspension and the exhaust and all this nonsense. Anyway, these cars don't have a lot of money, especially with almost 10,000 miles. JP, our car was a no reserve on cars and bids, so it was going to sell. The question is, which one of us nerds was going to be closer? You said $5,000. I said $7,000. I almost got a Yahtzee on this thing. It sold for $6,850, meaning I was off by $150. Sold on 18 bids. That result is kind of right where we thought. Not a lot of value. The guy who put the money into this is not getting it out of it. Makes you wonder why he even bothered to sell it. Like, might as well just hang on to it. Like, you're never going to get your money. So, I don't know. Just a weird thing. But some people love these cars. They are a niche market, a niche group of individuals who think Volvos can be sports cars, and they take them on the DW rallies and drive the snot out of them. Maybe, JP, you and I will see this car in our future, and we'll be like, we know that car. We covered it on Bid Nerds.
Yeah, some of the newer Volvos handle pretty darn well. I think trying to make this car into a sports car is just, it's silly because it's so good at what it is supposed to be. which is a comfortable sedan with that's got a little bit of sportiness to it. That's
Safe.
actually kind of fun to drive, and it's super safe. And it has those classic boxy lines and everything like that. These are really cool cars, but doing all this stuff to it just makes it trying to make it into something that it's not. I think and I think this person probably could have sold it for more money, just throwing it on Craigslist or find a Volvo forum or something like that.
When I see the picture of this car on Cars and Bids, it's like your grandma got a boob job. You know what I mean?
That is a good way to put it. Gosh, that's kind of a weird thing to
Don't touch
say.
that.
That's
Don't
going
touch that one.
someplace. Well, I mean, this definitely was your grandmother's car, and then someone else got a hold of it, and there's some molestation going on here. This is. Look at that crack dash. We're going through it.
Yeah.
Have you ever driven one of these? Michael
No.
Deeb? I can't remember if we talked about that before the break.
The oldest Volvo I've ever Volvo, whatever. I drove it. I've driven a T5R, like around the block kind of thing. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, these the closest thing. These really drive like kind of like your car. You have your Mercedes 190e Cosworth.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding. These things, they're heavy and they feel solid as can be.
Yeah,
they're not though. I mean, they're not slow. I wouldn't call it fast, but these are not slow cars. They actually feel like they can get it. I mean, now you have yours is a Cosworth. What is it? 2.3 or whatever. These are 2.5s or something. I can't.
No,
remember
it's a 2.3 inline 4. Yeah, this makes like 140 horsepower. Mine makes like 160. So you're not off with your analogy.
Yeah, I mean. Yeah, I would, it'd be interesting driving a clean one of these or a clean regular 190E. Could you get 190Es in the manual?
Yeah.
Could you? I don't remember ever seeing one. I know I remember seeing the diesel ones.
It wasn't the same gearbox. It wasn't the Getrag with a dog leg first, but they do make the 2.3s and the 2.6s and even the 300Es, which were a different platform, they all came with manuals in the US in the 80s. By the time the 90s rolled around, there were no more manuals. The only thing you could get in a manual at that point was an SL.
I don't recall ever seeing a manual 300 or 190 unless it were diesel. So that'd be interesting. What do you guys think out there? Have you ever driven a manual Mercedes? Do they compare to something like this 240? It would be cool, and I know you should like this, but maybe you're weird and don't. But this car, a clean version of the 240, like a 93 the last year, in a wagon with a manual.
Oh, yeah.
That would be a dope car to drive around.
Absolutely. And I don't know exactly where it fits in, but I just remember that Bertoni made a coupe from somewhere around this era.
The 242s,
Yeah, and I thought that was a really good looking. It was very boxy, very angular, but I thought it was a really good looking car, So, anyways, whatever.
All right, guys. Tell us what you think in the comments below. Tell us about a car that you think is the most interesting car of the day coming up in the future, and maybe we will agree and talk about that car and make it the car that is the most interesting car once we bequeath that it is. So on this show, it must be true. So check out that episode. We will see you tomorrow.
Get those words!